Because the real question isn't what you're willing to start. The real question is what you're finally willing to stop. And in the next part, we'll build the environments that make those choices almost effortless. The people filter, who actually deserves a front row seat in your life. You're not just designing systems for habits, you're designing seating charts for people. Think about that for a second. Your life is basically a theatre, and not everyone should be sitting in the same row. Most people act like they just have friends, family, co-workers, like it's this fixed caste. But if you think about it, healthy adults curate access. You've got front row people, middle row people, and balcony people. Same building, same room, totally different level of influence on your mind, your emotions, and your future. Front row people are the ones who see the real you when the performance is over. They know your doubts, your patterns, your weak spots. They're the ones whose texts can change your mood in 10 seconds. Their opinion can tilt your confidence up or down. Their energy becomes your emotional baseline. Real respect comes from being brutally honest about who you're letting sit that close. So what qualifies someone for front row access? It's not about history. It's not about who's known you the longest or who yells the loudest about day ones. The first layer of this is boundaries. Do they respect your time, your no, your need for silence and space? The second layer of it is growth. Do they actually support your evolution, or do they get weird when you improve? And then truth. Will they tell you the hard thing kindly when it would be easier to just nod and smile? Now contrast that with the energy drainers. Constant drama, subtle put-downs dressed up as jokes, guilt-tripping you when you skip a party to work on yourself. Some may say, that's just how they are, as if that magically makes your nervous system less fried. It doesn't. You can't build long-term control and self-respect while your front row is a circus. Here's a brutal but powerful filter, the future test. If you became the average of your 5 closest people in 10 years, would you be proud of that version of you? Picture their health, their money habits, their relationships, their attitude when life hits hard. That's the composite aura you're walking toward. This isn't about judging them as good or bad humans. It's about protecting the person you're becoming. And no, you don't need to go full Andrew Tate villain arc and cut everyone off on a Tuesday. You can simply move people from front row to balcony. Less access, less emotional exposure, more emotional seatbelts. Same person, different row. Practical exercise. Write down your closest 5 to 7 people. After you hang out or call, rate how you feel from -3 to +3. Drained, neutral, or charged. Patterns will jump out. That's your data. Because the environments you build next, your physical space, your digital space, won't matter if your front row keeps pulling you back to the old script. Boundaries, without the drama. Saying no without feeling like a bad person. So let's talk about the part everyone avoids, saying no. You can redesign your whole front row, but if you still say yes to everything, your calendar will betray you. And here's the uncomfortable truth. At the start, setting boundaries will feel wrong. Not kinda weird, wrong, like you're a bad person. That feeling, that guilt, that's not proof the boundary is wrong. It's proof your old identity was built on overgiving. Think about that for a second. Your nervous system is used to earning respect and approval by being available on demand. So when you finally say, actually I can't, your brain treats it like a social emergency. This isn't about becoming cold or selfish. It's not about controlling other people. A real boundary is about your behavior, not theirs. You can't talk to me like that is actually weak because now your peace depends on their choices. If you keep talking to me like that, I'm gonna leave the room, puts the control back in your hands. Real respect comes from that kind of quiet, steady self-respect. To make this simple, use a 3-part script. First layer, appreciation. Second layer, clear no or limit. Third, if you want an alternative. It sounds like, Hey, I appreciate you thinking of me. I can't do that this week. If you still need help next month, send it over earlier and I'll see. Short, calm, no TED Talk length explanation. Examples. Your friend texts at 6 p.m. Last minute drinks? You. Love that you thought of me. I'm staying in tonight to reset, so I'll pass. Let's plan something for next week. Someone tries to slide in unpaid work. I appreciate you trusting me with this. I don't take on unpaid projects, but here's a resource that might help. Emotional dumping at midnight. I care about you. I don't have the energy for a deep talk right now. Let's voice note tomorrow. At work. I get this is urgent. I'm at capacity with A and B, so if you want me to take C, which should I drop? Some may say, if you start doing that, people will leave. Good. The people who only liked you boundaryless were never responding to your true aura, just your usefulness. The ones who care will adjust. They may be surprised, they may push back, but over time they will respect the new version of you. If you think about it, every guilty yes is a quiet no to your future self, to your sleep, your focus, your long-term projects. You keep sacrificing the decade for the day. That's how you wake up 5 years later, still exhausted, still resentful, still scrolling. Mini challenge. This week, pick one low-stakes situation and practice a clear, kind no. Not a maybe, not a half yes. A clean no with that 3-part script. When you feel the wave of guilt, don't fix it. Just notice it and let it pass. Because here's the bold promise. Once you feel what a healthy boundary does for your energy, you won't want to go back. And next, we're going to take that same boundary muscle and apply it to your environment. So your room, your phone, your routines start saying no for you, even when you're tired. Emotional delays. Buying yourself 10 minutes before you react. So now your environment is starting to say no for you. Good. But there's one place boundaries usually disappear instantly. The moment you get triggered. One text, one comment, one look, and suddenly all that self-respect you've been building is gone, and you're slamming doors, rage texting, or saying things you don't even believe. Here's the shift. Emotions are signals, not commands. Feeling angry doesn't mean you have to send the paragraph. Feeling disrespected doesn't mean you have to blow up the room. The signal is, hey, something matters here. The command is optional. Think about that for a second. The moment you separate those two, you get your control back. So we're going to install a simple rule. The 10-minute delay. When you're heated, you don't text, don't call, don't quit, don't buy, don't post for at least 10 minutes. Not 10 seconds, 10 full minutes. Some may say that sounds soft, like you're backing down. It's not about being soft. It's about being dangerous and disciplined at the same time. What do you actually do in those 10 minutes? You don't sit there rehearsing comebacks. You change your state, stand up, leave the space. Walk around the block without your phone. Drink a glass of water. Take 10 slow breaths in the bathroom. Grab a sticky note and write, right now I feel because, and fill in the blank. If you think about it, those tiny actions are you choosing your aura instead of letting your aura choose you. Here's why this works. When you get triggered, your emotional brain fires first. Heart rate spikes, tunnel vision, you feel that hot energy in your chest. Your rational brain is slower. It needs a minute to catch up, to bring in context, to remember consequences. That 10-minute delay is literally buying time for the smarter part of you to come back online so you can respond instead of react. Picture a few moments. You're in a fight with your partner and you want to drop the nuclear line that wins but scars the relationship. You're about to buy something stupid online because you're stressed and TikTok said it's life-changing. You're ready to quit your job mid-shift because your boss snapped at you. You're hovering over a post that's half therapy, half public meltdown. 10 minutes would have saved every one of those. Use this phrase as your shield. I'm heated right now. I'll respond properly in a bit. That's it. You can text that. You can say that out loud. Real respect comes from that kind of honesty. You're not ghosting, you're not exploding, you're owning your state and protecting the other person from your worst self. The first layer of this is emotional safety. People start to trust you in conflict. They know you won't torch the room when you're upset. The second layer of this is identity. You become the kind of person whose confidence doesn't disappear the second you feel disrespected, because you know you can sit in the silence and still choose your move. So pause and really look at your life. How many arguments, breakups, money mistakes, and late night posts would simply not exist if you had waited just 10 minutes? And if 10 minutes can erase that much chaos, what happens when your entire environment is designed to keep you calm and focused before the trigger even hits? Emotional labeling. Name it so it doesn't own you. That's the power of 10 minutes. Now imagine if you could create that same gap, not just in time, but inside your own head, where a feeling hits. And instead of owning you, you can actually see it, name it, and choose what to do with it. This is where emotional labeling comes in. Some may say that sounds soft or like therapy speak. It's not about sitting in a circle and trauma dumping on strangers. It's about raw control. Name it to tame it is real. When you put words to what you feel, your brain literally shifts out of pure chaos and into a little more order. Think about that for a second. The feeling doesn't vanish, but it stops driving the car. The first layer of this is super simple. Shift from I am to I feel. I am angry glues that emotion to your identity. It fills the whole room. I feel anger right now. Create space. It's something passing through your body, not your entire personality. If you think about it, that tiny language tweak is a quiet act of self-respect. You're saying, I'm bigger than this spike of emotion. I can watch it instead of becoming it. Most people never learned an emotional vocabulary beyond stressed and fine. So when life hits, everything gets tossed into one big bucket. Start small. Frustrated, disappointed, overwhelmed, anxious, embarrassed, lonely, jealous. That's enough to change your day. You don't need a psychology degree. You just need slightly better words than I'm pissed or I'm good. Now here's the tool, a 3-part sentence. I feel emotion because the story I'm telling myself, and what I actually need is need. That middle part is key, because half the time, it's not the event that wrecks your energy, it's the story. I feel jealous because I'm telling myself I'm behind, and what I need is to focus on my lane. I feel lonely because I'm telling myself nobody really gets me, and what I need is to text one honest friend instead of scrolling. This interrupts spirals. Normally, you feel anxious, you doom scroll, you stalk your ex, you start comparing your life to some influencer with a rented Lambo and Andrew Tate quotes in their bio. When you label it, you pause. You get curious instead of reactive. That's real respect for your future self. And in relationships, this is a cheat code. You never listen puts people on defense. I feel hurt because I'm telling myself I don't matter to you, and what I need is 10 minutes with your full attention lands completely differently. Same situation, different aura in the room. So here's your daily rep. Once a day, write one honest sentence. I feel because, and I need, that's it. It will feel small and maybe awkward, but this is how you build emotional confidence, the kind that can sit in silence and not explode. Next, we'll stack this with how you choose people and say no without guilt, so your environment stops re-triggering the same stories you're trying to rewrite. Emotional minimums, the baseline, you refuse to drop below. So now that you can name what you feel on paper, here's the next layer. You need emotional minimums, not spa days, not Bali retreats. Emotional minimums are tiny non-negotiables that stop you from emotionally crashing in the first place. Think of them like brushing your teeth, but for your mood. You don't wait until your teeth are falling out to start brushing. Same with your emotional baseline. Most people confuse self-care with escape. Long vacations, bubble baths, a random mental health day when you're already burned out. It's not about that. That's ideal self-care. Great when it happens, but completely unreliable. Emotional minimums are realistic daily deposits. 10 minutes of movement, 5 minutes of quiet, 2 minutes of breathing where you actually let silence exist in the room. Think about that for a second. 10 minutes. You've wasted more than that today, scrolling past people you don't even like. Some may say, I don't have time. But you already have emotional minimums. They're just bad ones. Phone in hand before you even sit up. Zero sunlight. Constant noise. No wonder your energy and confidence feel like they're on life support. The first layer of fixing this is choosing new baselines on purpose. For your body, maybe it's 10 minutes of walking outside, even if it's just around your building. For your mind, maybe it's 3 honest sentences in a journal or 5 minutes of sitting without input. Then there's connection. Humans are not built for isolation, and group chats don't count. A simple connection minimum could be 1 honest conversation per week with someone you trust, or sending 1 real check-in text a day that isn't just memes. If you think about it, real respect comes from how you treat your own emotional system. You wouldn't run your phone from 100% to 0% every single day and call that productive. Yet you do it to yourself and then wonder why you snap at people you care about. These minimums matter most in hard seasons. When work is insane, when money is tight, when you feel like you're barely holding it together, that's when you want to drop everything extra. This isn't about luxury. This is life support. 10 to 20 minutes of emotional hygiene is not selfish. It's responsible. It protects your decisions, your relationships, your future you. Long-term thinking starts here. The second layer of decades thinking is realizing that today's baseline becomes your 5-year aura. So here's the simple framework. 1 body minimum, 1 mind minimum, 1 connection minimum. Lock them in. Put them in your calendar like meetings with yourself that you actually respect. Bold promise. If you stick to your emotional minimums for 30 days, your baseline mood, patience, and resilience will change. Not perfectly, but noticeably. Next, we'll talk about how to design your environment so these minimums become automatic, even on the days your motivation is completely dead. Designing your physical space for the person you're becoming your environment is not neutral. Every object in your room is quietly casting a vote for who you're becoming or who you used to be. Think about that for a second. You're trying to build emotional minimums, better habits, more self-respect, but you're doing it in a space designed for scrolling, escaping, and procrastinating. If you think about it, most people try to change their life from the neck up. They journal, they watch videos like this, they hype themselves up, then they go back to a bedroom that looks like a storage unit and a desk that looks like a crime scene. Some may say, it's fine, I know where everything is. Cool. But if a stranger walked into your room or workspace right now, who would they think lives there? A focused creator, an athlete in training, or someone who fell asleep mid-doom scroll in 2021 and never woke up? That question matters because your space is training your identity every day. Books visible on a shelf send a different signal than books buried in a box. A guitar on a stand in the middle of the room has a different energy than a guitar in the closet behind old shoes. A clear desk with just your laptop, a notebook, and water feels like control. The same desk buried in cables, wrappers, and 3 empty coffee cups feels like chaos. Real respect comes from walking into your own room and feeling, yeah, this matches who I'm becoming. The first layer of changing, that is what I call identity anchors. These are objects you place on purpose to remind you of your future self. Running shoes by the door that say, I'm someone who moves daily. A journal on your pillow that says, I'm someone who thinks and reflects. A camera on your desk that says, I'm a creator, not just a consumer. It's not about aesthetics or Pinterest perfection. It's about surrounding yourself with physical proof of the identity you're voting for. The second layer of this is a 30-minute identity reset. Set a timer. In that time, remove 5 things that belong to your old patterns. Maybe the snack stash by the bed, the second monitor you only use for Netflix, the pile of clothes that screams, I don't finish things. Then, add or highlight 5 things that belong to your new patterns. Your running shoes out, your journal open, a single inspiring book on the nightstand, a printed vision on the wall, your guitar on a stand. And before your brain says, yeah, but I don't have money for a glow-up apartment, relax. This isn't about buying some Andrew Tate marble table and cigar setup. This isn't about flexing. It's about rearranging, removing, and revealing. Move the good stuff into the spotlight. Hide or donate the things that drag your energy down. Research says around 40% of your actions are habits, not conscious choices. So make the good habits the easiest option in the room. When your environment makes your best actions obvious and easy, water bottle filled, gym bag packed, phone charger far from the bed, you stop relying on motivation. Your space does the heavy lifting, one corner at a time. So here's your move. Today, choose one room or even one tiny corner and make it a clear reflection of the life you're building. In the next section, we'll connect this to the people you let into that space and how they either reinforce or sabotage this new identity. Digital boundaries. Taking back your attention from your phone. Your room can finally start to reflect your future. Now you have to protect that future from the tiny casino in your pocket, and you need to understand this clearly. If you're trying to beat your phone with raw willpower, you're walking into a rigged game. Every swipe, every notification, every red dot is engineered to grab you. Whole teams of very smart people get paid to make sure you don't put that thing down. Think about that for a second. You're not weak for losing that battle on the toilet, in bed, at your desk. The system is designed so you lose. So the move isn't try harder. The move is change the rules of the game, because your attention is the real currency here. Attention is your most valuable long-term asset. Where it goes, your life goes. 10 minutes of scrolling doesn't look like much, but 10 minutes 6 times a day for 10 years, that's a different career, a different body, a different relationship you never built. If you think about it, your confidence, your skills, your self-respect are basically just where you've consistently aimed your attention. So we set digital boundaries, not monk level, delete every app and move to a cabin rules. Just sane, grown adult rules. First one, your phone is not your alarm clock. When your day starts on that screen, you're walking into everyone else's agenda before you've even found your own. Get a cheap physical alarm. Put your phone in another room. That single change shifts the energy of your mornings. Second, notifications. Most of your apps do not deserve the right to interrupt you. This isn't about becoming a digital hermit. It's about control. Turn off notifications for everything that isn't essential. Calls, maybe messages, maybe work if you must. No random pings from Instagram, TikTok, or that game you swear you barely play. One social media check-in window a day, on purpose, not by accident. Then you stack practical tactics. Grayscale mode makes your phone boring on purpose. The colors that hijack your brain disappear. Move addictive apps off your home screen so you have to search for them. Tiny speed bump, big impact. Use app timers, not as a prison, but as a speed camera. The first layer of discipline is just adding friction to the stuff that drains you. Now, create phone-free zones. During meals. First 30 minutes after waking, last 30 before bed. That's not punishment. That's you reclaiming actual silence, actual presence, actual eye contact with people in the room. Real respect comes from being the person who can sit there in that space without needing to escape into a screen every 5 seconds. Some may say, but what if I miss something? FOMO is the illusion that everything is urgent. The truth, the people and opportunities that truly matter will still be there when you check later. If someone needs you urgently, they'll call. They won't just tag you in a story. So zoom out. 10 years of scattered, hijacked attention versus 10 years of mostly focused attention. Same you, same world, completely different life path. This isn't about being perfect with your phone. It's about no longer letting it own your brain by default. And here's the real question. If you actually got that attention back, what would you build, learn, or repair with it? And who would you need around you to make that version of you real? Energy management. Stop treating yourself like a machine. So let's answer that, because here's the trap. You can get your attention back and still lose the game if your energy is cooked. You don't just have a time problem, you have an energy problem. Think about that for a second. You can have 3 free hours in your calendar and still be so fried that all you can do is scroll, snack, and stare. Time management is, do I have a slot for this? Energy management is, will there be anything left of me when that slot arrives? Very different questions. Most people treat themselves like a laptop on 3% battery, opening more tabs, turning the brightness up, and then getting mad when it shuts down. This isn't about squeezing more tasks into the day. It's about not living in permanent low battery mode. If you think about it, your day already runs in cycles. Peaks, dips, and recovery. There's usually a window where you feel sharp and confident, a window where your brain turns into mashed potatoes, and a window where you can handle simple, low-stakes stuff. Real respect comes from actually noticing those patterns instead of pretending you're a robot who can grind at 100% from 6 a.m. to midnight. Your job is to find your personal peak hours and protect that space like it's rent in Dubai. For a lot of people, it's the first 2 to 4 hours after waking if you haven't instantly sacrificed them to your phone. That's when you write, study, build, apply, create. Not when you're half asleep at 11 p.m. trying to finally start that side project with zero energy and Andrew Tate clips playing in the background. Then you build in micro recovery, 5-minute walks outside, stretching your shoulders and neck, 10 deep breaths in real silence, no screen, standing up, getting water, looking out a window instead of into another app, tiny resets. Not 30 minutes of YouTube that somehow becomes 3 hours. The first layer of energy management is understanding you don't earn extra respect by being exhausted all the time. The second layer of energy management is closing the leaks. Constant multitasking, emotional drama, clutter everywhere. That one unresolved conversation you keep rehearsing in your head while you shower. These things drain you more than any workout. Some may say they're just stressful people, but often it's a lack of boundaries, a lack of control over what gets to live in your mental room. Zoom out to decades. You're not trying to win the day if it means being so burnt out you hate your life 5 years from now. It's not about one heroic sprint. It's about being able to show up again and again with enough energy to actually finish what you start. So here's a simple nightly checkpoint. What gave me energy today? What drained me? What can I adjust tomorrow? That's it. No fancy app. Your life is already giving you feedback. You just start listening. In the next part, we'll take this even further and talk about the people around you, because your environment doesn't just shape your habits, it shapes your energy, your confidence, and the future decade you're walking into. The compound effect of tiny social upgrades. And the biggest part of that feedback, the people around you. Your relationships are basically a living mirror of your habits. Think about that for a second. Just like your money grows through tiny deposits, your connections grow or quietly decay through tiny social actions you repeat without noticing. Most people treat relationships like events, birthday call, big apology, random catch up once a year, but relationships are more like a savings account. Every small, boring, almost invisible interaction is either a deposit or a withdrawal, a one-word reply, a thoughtful response, a saw this and thought of you meme. Over a decade, that stuff compounds harder than any crypto project your friend keeps shilling. This isn't about turning into some hyper-charismatic Andrew Tate meets TED Talk hybrid. It's not about performing, it's about tiny upgrades. Instead of K or LO, you send one extra sentence. Hey, I'm actually proud of you for sticking with that. Instead of forgetting what they said last time, you remember their exam, their launch, their sick parent, and you ask, how did that go? Instead of scrolling, you fire off a 30-second voice note, checking in on you. No need to reply fast. If you think about it, those are 1% upgrades, nothing dramatic, no big speech, just slightly more presence, slightly more intention. The first layer of being a good friend isn't buying gifts or planning trips. It's replying like a human, not a notification. The second layer of it is remembering details and circling back. That's where people feel seen. So here's the frame. Become a 1% better friend every week. One small thing that makes you more reliable, more present, or more encouraging. You answer when you say you will. You actually show up on time. You send a message before you disappear for a week. Over 52 weeks, that's 52 upgrades to your social identity. And identity is the real game. Real respect comes from being the person people can trust in the dark, not just the person who's fun in the group chat. When your energy is calm, your word is solid, and you don't vanish at the first sign of discomfort, your aura in the room changes. People start thinking of you for opportunities. They feel safe sharing real stuff, not just highlights. Long term, this compounds into a better network, deeper friendships, and way more support when life punches you in the face. Some may say, it's all about who you know. But it's really about who actually wants to pick up when you call at 2 a.m. Now, if you have social anxiety, hear this clearly. You don't need to be the loudest or the most charming. Over 10 years, consistency and sincerity beat charm every single time. Quiet, steady presence builds more confidence and self-respect than trying to dominate every space. So here's your challenge. In the next 24 hours, choose 3 people and send each one a specific, genuine message. Not, hey, something real. I appreciate you for, or I remembered you said this. How did it go? That's it. 3 tiny deposits. Bold promise. If you keep upgrading your relationships by just 1% a week, your life, your opportunities, and the way people treat you will look almost unrecognizable in a few years. And next, we'll talk about how to protect that social energy, how to say no, set boundaries, and still keep your respect for yourself and the people around you. Becoming the kind of person who finishes things. So now you're upgrading your relationships, you're protecting your social energy. Good. But there's another kind of respect you can't outsource. The respect you have for yourself when you actually finish things. Be honest. How many times have you started something with crazy excitement? A new workout plan, a business idea, a language app streak, then dropped it the moment it got boring, hard, or slightly inconvenient. You go from, this will change my life, to, I'll restart Monday in about 4 days. Think about that for a second. That pattern quietly kills your confidence more than almost anything else. This isn't about you being lazy as a person. It's not about you lacking some mythical grind set gene Andrew Tate yelled about. Finishing is a skill, a trainable one. And like any skill, it lives or dies based on your systems, not your mood. If your environment is chaos, your phone is glued to your hand, and every task is vague and huge, of course you don't finish. Your worst self is running the room. The first layer of changing this is everything we've already talked about. Micro promises, friction, seasons, emotional delays. Micro promises rebuild trust. I read 2 pages, not I become a genius this week. Friction slows the bad habits. Phone in another room, snacks not in the house. Seasons give you permission to focus. This month is about health, not 10 goals at once. Emotional delay is that pause between I feel like quitting and I actually decide. If you think about it, all of that is designed to make finishing the default instead of the miracle. Now add one more piece, the finish line rule. Before you start anything new, you define what finished looks like in concrete terms. Not learn Spanish, but finish this 10-lesson beginner course. Not get in shape, but complete 30 workouts, even if some are only 10 minutes. When the finish line is fuzzy, your brain never gets closure. No closure, no self-respect, and you don't start huge. You start almost embarrassingly small. Finish a 10-page section of a book and actually highlight what hit you. Finish a 30-day streak of going to bed without your phone in your hand. Finish one simple project at work that you've been avoiding and send the email. These tiny completions change your aura more than another motivational video ever will. Then you lock it in with identity statements. I'm the kind of person who finishes what I start. I'm the kind of person who keeps promises to myself. At first it feels fake. That's fine. You repeat it and then you prove it with action. Over time, your nervous system starts to believe you. Real respect comes from that alignment between what you say and what you actually do in the silence when nobody's watching. So, here's your exercise. Pick one unfinished thing that actually matters to you, not 10, 1. Define a realistic finish line. Then schedule just the next 2 steps in your calendar with time and place. No drama, no perfection. Because imagine this. Who do you become when your life is a series of things you actually finished, not just things you once got excited about? And if you had that version of you online, how different would your boundaries, your focus, and your future look in the final stretch we're about to talk through? From consuming to becoming, turning this video into a new identity. That's the turning point right there. Up to now, you've been watching a video. From here on, you're either building a new identity or you're just collecting more motivational noise like every other tab you've ever closed. There are 2 types of people who find videos like this. The first type nods along, feels a spike of energy, maybe sends it to a friend, and then goes right back to the same scrolling, the same late nights, the same quiet self-disrespect. The second type watches once, maybe twice, and then quietly starts rebuilding who they are around it. Which one are you actually going to be after this ends? Think about that for a second. The whole core of this is an identity shift. You're moving from short-term, reactive, approval-seeking to long-term, deliberate, self-respecting. This isn't about becoming some cold robotic discipline machine or LARPing as the most intense version of Andrew Tate in your group chat. It's about you having enough control and calm that your energy doesn't get yanked around by every notification and every opinion in the room. So let's make it real. Try this on as your new identity statement. I'm someone who thinks in decades, designs my environment, and keeps promises to myself. Say it out loud if you can. If you think about it, that one sentence hits almost everything we've talked about. Long-term vision, systems over willpower, and self-respect built through action, not talk. Now here's the part people miss. Identity isn't reinforced by a big speech, or a dramatic post, or a tattoo in Latin. The first layer of real change is tiny, repeated actions. Research suggests around 40% of what you do each day is habit, not a conscious choice. So the game for the next 24 hours is simple. Live as that person wants. One tech-free walk. One honest no instead of a fake yes. One task you finish when you said you would. It's going to feel weird. Your old habits will pull you back. Some may say you're acting different or too serious now. Good. That tension is a sign of growth, not failure. Real respect comes from staying calm in that awkward space where the old you is dying and the new you is still a bit shaky. So visualize this with me for a moment. Picture who you were when you clicked this video. Maybe overstimulated, half distracted, 10 tabs open, low-key annoyed at yourself. Now picture who you could be 12 months from now if you actually lived this out. Phone in another room by default, mornings with more silence, a body that feels stronger, fewer people to impress, more presence in every space you walk into. Right now we're standing in the doorway between ideas and implementation. The next sections are the bridge. We're going to turn this identity into concrete steps, real commitments, and a life where your actions finally match the respect you say you want. The 3 non-negotiables, what actually matters over the next 10 years. So now we have this upgraded identity in your head. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Over the next 10 years, almost everything you care about right now is going to fade. Trends will die. Platforms will change. Andrew Tate will be replaced by Andrew Tate 3.0. The question is, what actually survives? When you zoom out a full decade, you start asking a different question. What will still matter to me 10 years from now? Not what feels exciting this week. Not what gets the most approval on your feed. Think about that for a second. 10 years from now, you won't care how many random productivity hacks you tried. You'll care about the few things you went all in on with real self-respect. This is where you choose your 3 non-negotiables, 3 pillars. For most people, they end up looking like some version of your health, your deep work or craft, and your relationships and character. It's not about copying my list, it's about deciding with full honesty. If these 3 areas are strong, I can walk into any room with confidence no matter what else is going on. Why 3? Because 1 pillar and your life becomes lopsided. You get shredded in the gym, but your social life is dead and your career is chaos. 10 pillars and you're pretending. You dilute your attention, your willpower, your energy, and then you wonder why nothing moves. 3 is just enough to be complete, but few enough that you can actually defend them when life gets loud. So here's the exercise. Grab a page and brain dump every area you say you care about. Money, travel, spirituality, dating, status, learning, family, whatever. Don't edit yet. Then the ruthless part. Circle the 3 that if you did them well for 10 years would make everything else easier or less important. If you think about it, strong health makes you better at work and more present with people. Deep work makes money, skills, and options easier. Solid relationships and character give you a stable base when everything else falls apart. The first layer of this is just naming them. The second layer of it is using them as a decision filter. Every invite, habit, project, and impulse scroll goes through the same question. Does this clearly support at least one of my 3 pillars? If the answer is no, it becomes a maybe later or a clean, guilt-free number. Real respect comes from protecting your priorities when nobody's watching. And this is where long-term thinking quietly changes your whole aura. Your 10-year self does not care that you dabbled in 17 hobbies and half-finished courses. They care that you invested deeply in the few things that actually move the needle for your body, your craft, and your people. Now, knowing you're free is powerful, but it's still fragile, because when chaos hits, emotions take control and you default back to old habits. In the next section, we're going to build a stupidly simple daily system that protects those pillars, even on your worst, laziest, I just want my phone days. The Daily 111, a simple system to protect your future self. So here's the safety net for your future self. A tiny daily rule that works even when you feel like a zombie. I call it the daily 1-1-1. Every day, no matter what, you do one thing for your body, one thing for your future, and one thing for your relationships or character. That's it. 3 moves. Think about that for a second. This isn't about becoming some robot monk who wakes up at 4 a.m., cold plunges, and journals about his grind set while listening to Andrew Tate clips. It's about protecting your 3 pillars in the simplest way possible. Body maps to your health. Future maps to your craft, skills, and finances. Relationships and character map to how you treat people and how you treat yourself when no one's watching. For your body, your 1 might be a 20-minute walk without your phone, a basic workout, or 10 minutes of stretching before bed. Nothing glamorous, just something that tells your nervous system, we take care of this body. For your future, it could be 1 focused work block with your phone in another room, 30 minutes of learning a skill or building a tiny piece of a project, send 1 pitch email, edit 1 video, write 1 page. If you think about it, that's how entire careers get built. For relationships and character, your 1 might be 1 honest conversation you've been avoiding, a thoughtful voice note to a friend, or 5 minutes of journaling instead of rage texting or doom scrolling. Real respect comes from how you show up in those quiet, invisible moments. When you choose reflection over reaction, you change the whole energy of the room, even if that room is just your own head. The bar is intentionally low. Some may say, that's too easy, it won't change anything. But consistency beats intensity. The first layer of change is not massive progress, it's rebuilding trust with yourself. When you keep tiny promises, your confidence starts to come back. You stop chasing approval and start acting from self-respect and control. Now, how do you actually do this on a chaotic, notification-filled day? Environment. You preset your 1-1-1 the night before. You lay out your workout clothes, put your book or course link on your home screen, and put your journal on your pillow. You make your 3 actions the path of least resistance, and you push distractions just a little further away. And on those no time, everything's on fire days, you still don't hit 0. 5 push-ups counts, 5 minutes of deep work counts, 1 honest text or 2 lines in your journal counts. The rule is something, never nothing. The second layer of this is identity. Every time you complete your 1-1-1, you cast 3 votes for the person you said you wanted to become. You're not just protecting your day, you're protecting your decade. But there's a catch. You can know your pillars and your 1-1-1 and still blow it the second you get triggered. Your emotions hijack the whole system. So next, we need to talk about emotional management. How to stop reacting like your worst self when life presses your buttons. Emotional mastery. Light. How to respond instead of react in real life. Your systems don't fail because they're bad. They fail because in one heated moment, your emotions walk in, grab the steering wheel, and drive your life straight into a wall. If you think about it, most of your biggest regrets didn't come from a lack of information. They came from a 5-second reaction. So emotional mastery for you is not about becoming a robot. It's not about never feeling angry, anxious, insecure, or jealous. This isn't about never be triggered, Andrew Tate style toughness. It's about buying yourself a tiny gap between feeling and acting. That gap is where your 10-year self either wins or loses. Here's the simple pattern. Notice to name, to normalize, to navigate. That's it. 4 moves. You don't need therapy level analysis in the moment. You need a tiny bit of control. Think about that for a second. 1 extra breath, 1 extra sentence in your head can protect an entire decade of progress. Step 1. Notice. Before the story in your mind, there's a signal in your body. Tight chest, clenched jaw, racing thoughts, heat in your face, that buzzing energy when you see a text you don't like. Your job is to catch that spike and say, pause. Something's happening. Real respect comes from not letting that first wave own you. Step 2, name. Literally label it. This is anxiety. This is shame. This is anger. When you name it, you create a bit of space. You're not an anxious person in that room. You're a person noticing anxiety passing through. Some may say that sounds too simple, but research shows even basic labeling calms the emotional centers of the brain. Step 3, normalize. This is where self-respect shows up. You tell yourself, of course I feel this. I'm stretching my comfort zone. Or, anyone would feel this after criticism. You're not weak for reacting. You're human. The first layer of strength is allowing the feeling without making it a verdict on your worth. Step 4, navigate. Now you ask, what response serves my 10-year self? Not your ego in the next 10 seconds, your future in the next 10 years. Microscript it. Right now I want to react, but my 10-year self needs me to pause. Or, this feeling is temporary. The consequence of reacting isn't. That single line can stop a rage text, a binge, or quitting on a habit. Let's plug this into real triggers. Criticism from your boss. Notice the tight chest. Name the shame. Normalize it. Feedback stings everyone. Then navigate by asking one calm question instead of shutting down, scrolling and comparison. Notice the sinking feeling, name the envy, normalize. Of course I feel behind. I'm seeing everyone's highlight reel. Then navigate by closing the app and doing one tiny action from your 111. You practice this on small stuff first. Annoying text, slow Wi-Fi, someone cutting you off in traffic. Every rep is like a push-up for your emotional muscle, so when the big breakup, the job loss, or the family drama hits, the pattern is already there. Because here's the thing, your long-term thinking and your beautiful environment design both collapse if the loudest person in your life is your most triggered self. And often, the biggest trigger isn't a situation, it's people. So next, we need to talk about who actually gets access to you and who doesn't. Upgrading your circle, who gets a front row seat in your life. So here's the uncomfortable truth. Your environment isn't just your room, your phone, or your habits. It's people. The voices you hear most often slowly become your inner voice. Think about that for a second. If your top 5 influences are stressed, impulsive, and living for the weekend, you're not magically becoming this calm, decade-thinking monk. You're marinating in their energy, whether you notice it or not. Research shows about 40% of what you do each day is habit, not conscious choice. Now add this. Habits, standards, and beliefs are contagious. If you think about it, you've already felt this. One friend starts going to the gym, suddenly 2 others randomly join. One co-worker complains all day, and by 3 p.m., the whole office feels heavier. That's not an accident, that's social gravity. So we need a simple way to manage that gravity. Here's the metaphor: front row, balcony, nosebleeds. Not everyone deserves the same level of access to your time, energy, and attention. Front row people are the ones who see you up close, in the mess, in the silence, when your confidence is shaky. Balcony people cheer from a distance. Nosebleed people, they're still in the arena of your life, but they don't get a direct line to your nervous system. This isn't about acting superior or doing some Andrew Tate cut off anyone who doubts you performance. It's about control. It's about self-respect. The first layer of upgrading your circle is just awareness. Grab your notes app later and write down the 5 people you spend the most time with. Then ask one question for each. When I leave this person, do I feel pulled toward or away from my 10-year self? Not your ego self. Your best, most disciplined, most peaceful self. Some may say, well, if they don't motivate you 24/7, cut them. Relax. Life isn't a TED Talk. Upgrading your circle doesn't always mean dramatic breakups or speeches. Most of the time it's quiet. You shift how often you hang out. You change the topics. You add boundaries around the chaos. Instead of 3 nights a week of drinking and gossip, it becomes one coffee where you keep the conversation away from pure drama. The second layer of this is micro upgrades. You don't need a whole new friend group overnight. You spend an extra hour a week with the one growth-minded friend who actually asks about your goals. You join a small community around your craft instead of another group chat that just sends memes. You follow creators who challenge your thinking instead of numb you into another 3-hour scroll. And yeah, there's guilt, there's fear. You'll worry people will think you believe you're better than them. Real respect comes from understanding this. You're not better, you're just responsible. Responsible for your trajectory, your mental health, your future family, your 10-year self who has to live with the compound effect of today's relationships. Because if you think about it, it's almost impossible to become a disciplined, long-term thinker while you're constantly marinating in short-term chaos. You can't think in decades when every conversation is about this weekend, this argument, this notification. So as you start protecting your circle, there's one more skill you'll need. How to say no in a way that doesn't blow up your life or leave you drowning in guilt. That's where we're going next. Saying no without guilt. Boundaries for people who hate conflict. Most people think saying no is rude or selfish, but if you think about it, every time you say yes to something you don't really want, you're quietly saying no to your own life, your sleep, your focus, your future plans. They're the ones getting sacrificed so someone else doesn't feel slightly uncomfortable for 5 seconds. Reframe this completely. No isn't aggression, it's protection. You're not attacking people, you're guarding your energy, your health, your long-term goals. Think about that for a second. The most disciplined, respected people you know, they're not the ones who say yes to every invite, every favor, every quick call. They protect their time like it actually matters, because it does. So how do you do that without turning into some Andrew Tate parody, barking no at everyone? You use a simple formula. Kind, clear, brief. Kind means you respect the person. Clear means you don't waffle. Brief means you don't write a 3-paragraph essay that invites debate. Kind sounds like, I appreciate you thinking of me. Clear sounds like, I'm not able to do that. Brief sounds like, then you stop talking. Silence is your friend here. The second layer of this is resisting the urge to over-explain. The more reasons you stack, the more they'll try to solve your reasons instead of accepting your boundary. Let's make this plug and play so you don't freeze in the moment. Someone invites you to a project you don't want. I appreciate the invite, but I'm not taking on anything new right now. A friend wants you out 3 nights this week. That doesn't fit my priorities this month, so I'll pass. Your boss keeps dumping extra work. I can do that, but then X will be delayed. Which is more important? Real respect comes from calmly stating your limits, not from being endlessly available. Now, boundaries are not ultimatums. That's where people get stuck. An ultimatum is, you need to change or else. A boundary is, here's what I will do if this continues. See the difference in control? You're not trying to control them, you're taking control of you. If you keep speaking to me like that, I'm gonna end this conversation. They're free to keep talking. You're free to walk away. And yeah, you'll feel guilty at first. That guilt is just your nervous system panicking because you're breaking an old pattern of people pleasing. This isn't about becoming cold. It's about upgrading from approval seeking to self-respect. The first layer of guilt is, I'm a bad person. Underneath it is usually, I'm not used to choosing myself. Here's where your 3 non-negotiables and the 1-1-1 rule save you. If a request doesn't support your health, your core relationships, or your meaningful work, it becomes a default no or a not now. You're not rejecting the person, you're protecting the path. That's how you think in decades instead of days. Start tiny. Say no to a random Zoom, to checking your phone first thing to that extra drink, you're building a boundary muscle. And once you've set these boundaries and systems, the real game begins. Staying consistent on the days you feel tired, unmotivated, or tempted to slide back. That's where we're going next. How to keep showing up when the initial motivation disappears and the grind actually starts. When motivation dies, how to keep going on the boring days. This is the part nobody puts on the motivational posters. Your motivation is going to die, not dip, die. There will be mornings where the 1-1-1 rule feels stupid, your default day design feels annoying, and you'd rather scroll Andrew Tate clips than do one focused block of work. Think about that for a second. That's not a sign you're broken. That's a sign you've moved past the honeymoon phase into real change. Some may say, if I really cared, I'd feel more driven. No. Professionals don't wait to feel driven. They show up because it's Tuesday at 9 a.m. and that's what the system says. Amateurs keep negotiating with their mood. Do I feel like it? Do I feel inspired? If you think about it, your feelings are the most unstable thing in the room. Your systems are the part you actually control. This is why we built the 1-1-1 rule and your default day design earlier. Those weren't for the rare, magical, high-energy days. Those exist specifically for the days you don't care and don't want to try. When your energy is low, you don't need a new plan. You just follow the script you wrote when you were clear-headed and honest. Now, here's the rule that quietly separates people who change from people who quit. Minimum viable effort. On low energy days, you're allowed to shrink the habit, but you're not allowed to break the chain. 5 push-ups instead of a full workout, 10 minutes of focused work instead of a 3-hour deep dive, 1 honest text to a friend instead of a full catch-up call, tiny, almost embarrassingly small, but the chain stays unbroken. The first layer of this is how you talk to yourself. The script is simple. I don't have to do the full version, but I do have to do something. Say it out loud if you need to. This isn't about heroics. It's about self-respect. Real respect comes from keeping promises to yourself when nobody's watching, when there's silence, when there's zero external approval on the line. Every time you show up on a boring day, you're running a quiet confidence loop. Action first, identity second, feelings last. You do the small version, you prove to yourself, I'm someone who shows up, and your aura shifts a little. Next time, it's easier. That's how people rebuild confidence after years of calling themselves lazy. Here's the reframe. Boredom and resistance are not red flags. They're proof you're building something bigger than your current comfort zone. Your brain is just protesting the upgrade. And remember, around 40% of what you do each day is habit, not conscious choice. So when you nudge that 40%, even slightly, your 5-year path changes. But to make this sustainable, you can't just grind blindly. You need a simple way to review, adjust, and stay on course without obsessing over perfection or turning your life into a spreadsheet. That's where we're going next. How to run a low-drama review system that keeps you aligned, not anxious. The weekly reset. Course correct without beating yourself up. So you use this script. I don't have to do all of it. I just have to do my 5 minutes. That's your line when motivation is dead and your energy is on the floor. And in the next part, we're going to talk about the brutal days when even 5 minutes feels impossible. Your emotions are all over the place and your brain is screaming to tap out, and how you stay in the game anyway. When you don't feel like it, separating feelings from commitments, and how you stay in the game anyway. Here's the brutal truth. If you only act when you feel like it, your life is being run by your mood, not your mind, not your commitments. Your Saturday afternoon on the couch energy is secretly the CEO. Think about that for a second. You say you want a different body, a different bank account, a different aura when you walk into a room, but the board of directors is tired, bored, and not in the mood. This is the trap most people live in. Feelings show up and you treat them like instructions. I feel anxious, so I avoid. I feel tired, so I skip. I feel unmotivated, so I scroll. It feels logical in the moment, but if you think about it, that's like cancelling the construction of a building every time the weather changes. A bit of rain and the whole crew goes home. Here's the reframe. Your feelings are weather. Your commitments are architecture. Weather changes every hour. Architecture stays. Some may say, but my emotions are real. Of course they are. They're just not qualified to be your project manager. Real respect comes from letting your feelings be data, not dictators. You listen, you take note, but you don't hand them the keys to your whole life. And there's another piece people miss: emotional lag. Your feelings are often behind your actions, not ahead of them. You don't feel confident, then go to the gym. You drag yourself to the gym, do the warm-up, and 20 minutes in, you suddenly feel human again. Motivation shows up like that friend who's always late to the party. This isn't about waiting for energy. It's about starting small and letting the energy catch up. So you use a simple rule. I don't negotiate with myself about the promise. I only negotiate about the size. The promise is non-negotiable. You are a person who moves their body daily, or writes daily, or studies daily. That identity doesn't get debated. The only thing on the table is scale. 5 minutes or 50, 1 page or 10, a walk around the block or a full workout. Practically, it's a 3-step process. First layer of control. Notice the feeling. I feel heavy. I feel numb. I feel annoyed. Second layer of control. Name it out loud or on paper. That tiny moment of silence between you and the emotion creates space. Then you restate the commitment in the smallest possible form. I feel tired and unmotivated, and I'm still doing my 5-minute promise. Not instead of, and. Every time you do that, you're not just checking a box, you're voting. You're casting a ballot for a future self who has more confidence, more self-respect, more calm in the room when life gets loud. One push-up, one paragraph, one tiny act when your energy is low is you proving to yourself, I can be trusted when it's hard. If you think about it, that's how you build a decade, not just a day. Now, of course, there are days when even that 5-minute version doesn't happen. You drop the ball, you break the promise, maybe you vanish into TikTok and wake up 3 hours later wondering what planet you're on. The question is, what happens then? In the next section, we're going to talk about how to handle those crash days without spiraling, without self-hate, and without quietly quitting on yourself. The art of the bounce back. How to recover fast after you mess up. Those crash days are where most people quietly lose the game. Not because they missed one workout or one study session or one clean meal. They lose because of the story they tell themselves after. Think about that for a second. The pattern usually goes like this. You miss one day, you feel shame, you tell yourself, I've ruined it, and then you quit. Not always dramatically. Sometimes you just stop opening the app, stop tracking, stop showing up. The habit didn't die from one bad day. It died from all or nothing thinking and that heavy, disappointed energy you let sit in the room with you. This is where the never miss twice principle comes in. You're not aiming for perfection. You're aiming for recovery speed. If you think about it, a year where you show up 70% of the days is wildly different from a year where you show up for 10 days, miss one, then disappear for 3 weeks out of guilt. One missed day is a data point. 2, 3, 4 in a row becomes a direction. The real damage isn't the skipped workout, the late wake up, or the 3 hours lost to TikTok. It's the identity script that follows. See, I'm just lazy. I always mess this up. I'll never change. That script kills more dreams than any algorithm. This isn't about pretending the miss didn't happen. It's about taking control of the meaning you attach to it. So you need a bounce back script, 4 steps: pause, review, adjust, recommit. First, pause. No reacting, no dramatic declarations about your life. Just a moment of silence, a breath, a bit of emotional control. Second, review. What actually happened? Were you exhausted, overbooked, scrolling until 2 a.m. because your brain was fried? Third, adjust. Maybe your morning habit dies every time you sleep 5 hours. Cool, that's feedback. Tweak the environment or schedule. Phone in another room, earlier shutdown, smaller morning target. Finally, recommit. Out loud. I missed yesterday. Today I'm back. You're basically doing a tiny, non-judgmental post-mortem. What triggered it? Was it a fight with someone, a stressful email, or that one friend who treats your time like a 24/7 Andrew Tate reaction channel? What can you change in the space around you so the same trap is harder to fall into next time? Real respect comes from using your mistakes as information, not as weapons. This is tough honesty without self-abuse. You don't say, "It's fine, nothing matters." You also don't say, "I'm trash." You say, "I broke a promise." Why? What's the first layer of this? And what's the second layer of this? Maybe the first layer is, "I was tired." And the second layer is, "I scheduled like I'm a robot, not a human." Here's the identity shift. Stop chasing "I never fail." Start owning, "I'm the kind of person who always comes back." That's a different aura. That's quiet confidence. You respect yourself not because you're flawless, but because you refuse to stay down. One bad day doesn't touch your decade. And here's where it gets interesting. Bounce backs get 10 times easier when the people around you and the boundaries you set are working with you instead of against you. So in the next part, we're going to talk about how to choose those people, how to protect your space, and how to say no in a way that might actually shock you. Your inner circle. Why the people around you are your future. So let's zoom in on something uncomfortable. Your future isn't living in your vision board, it's sitting on your group chat. The people in your daily orbit are quietly designing your next 10 years, the same way your bedroom and your phone design your habits. Think about that for a second. Earlier, we talked about environment design with objects and spaces. No junk food at home, phone in another room, journal on your pillow. Now take that same logic and apply it to people. Your inner circle is a living environment. It has a certain energy, a certain language, a certain normal. You swim in it every day, so you stop noticing how strong the current actually is. There's this idea that you become the average of the people you spend the most time with. Not just income, habits, standards, jokes, what you complain about. If your friends treat being exhausted, scrolling till 2 a.m. and hating their job as just adult life, you will too. If you think about it, you don't rise to your goals. You sink to your group's expectations. So ask yourself, honestly, who makes you smaller? Who do you leave feeling drained, second-guessing yourself, shrinking your opinions to keep the peace? Then, who makes you sharper? Who raises your standards just by existing? Who makes you want to sit up straighter, speak with more control, act with more self-respect? And the brutal one, who normalizes your excuses, laughs at your procrastination, tells you you work too hard the second you try to change? The influence is subtle. It's in the jokes about gym people, the eye roll when you say you're going to bed early, the silence when you share a win and everyone changes the subject. It's in what your group calls weird and what it calls normal. Reading on a Friday night might be weird in one room and completely normal in another. Same action, different aura, totally different future. Now, this isn't about surrounding yourself with fake cheerleaders who clap for everything. The first layer of real support is challenge. People who call you up, not just out. You said you wanted to write. Why haven't you touched your draft this week? That can sting, but it's rooted in respect. Toxic criticism feels different. It attacks you, not your behavior. It makes you feel smaller, not stronger. Some may say, I'm just being honest, while slowly pulling you down to their level. Use a 10-year lens. If you stayed around your current circle, same group chat, same weekend patterns for a decade, who would you become? More confident, calmer, with more self-respect, or more bitter, more jealous, more numb? Real respect comes from being willing to answer that without sugarcoating it. And here's the hard truth. You're allowed to outgrow people. This isn't about making them villains or writing an Andrew Tate style manifesto about cutting everyone off. It's about accepting that different seasons need different environments. Some friendships were perfect for survival mode, but not for your next chapter. In the next part, we'll get practical. How do you say no, create distance, and protect your space without guilt, drama, or turning every conversation into a TED Talk about your healing journey? Saying no without guilt. Boundaries for people who hate conflict. So let's start with this. Every time you say yes, you're secretly saying no to something else. Your sleep, your workout, your side project, your sanity. Think about that for a second. You're not just agreeing to stay late at work, you're disagreeing with your own 10-year self who needed that evening to build a different life. Most people-pleasing looks kind on the surface, but it has a hidden price tag. Resentment, burnout, and this weird feeling that your life doesn't even feel like yours. You say yes to helping everyone move, edit their resume, listen to their drama, and then wonder why your energy is gone and your goals never move. If you think about it, that's not generosity. That's self-abandonment dressed up as being a good person. This isn't about becoming cold, selfish, or doing an Andrew Tate style cut everyone off tour. Boundaries are not aggression. Boundaries are clarity. This is what I can do. This is what I can't. Real respect comes from that kind of calm clarity. People may not love it in the moment, but they feel the confidence and the clean energy behind it. So how do you actually say no without turning it into a TED Talk or a full-on argument? The first layer of this is having simple scripts. A soft no sounds like, I'd love to support, but I can't take that on right now. Short, respectful, no over-explaining. A delayed no. Let me check my week and get back to you tomorrow. That gives you space to respond instead of react. A conditional yes. I can help for an hour on Saturday, but I'll need to leave by 3. You stay in control of your time instead of handing over the keys. Now, the guilt, because you will feel it. Your stomach will flip. Your brain will scream. You're a bad friend. Guilt is often just a sign that you're breaking an old pattern, not that you're doing something wrong. Some may say, trust your feelings, but some of your feelings were trained by years of chasing approval. You don't fix that in one conversation, so you start small. One honest no per week to something that doesn't align with your 10-year self. Not 10. 1. No, I can't go out tonight. I'm getting up early. No, I'm not staying late. I've got plans. Over time, those tiny acts of self-respect stack. It's not about perfection, it's about repetition. You teach people how to treat you by what you allow and what you reinforce. When you always say yes, you train them to ignore your limits. When you calmly hold the line, you shift the whole aura of the relationship. And here's where we're going next. Once you can say no, you get to be intentional about who actually deserves your yes. How do you choose and cultivate the people who genuinely support your 10-year vision, not just your current habits? That's the next layer. Choosing your people, building a 10-year support system. So here's the shift. You're not just choosing who gets your yes this weekend, you're choosing who gets a front row seat to your next 10 years. Think about that for a second. Most people sleepwalk into friendships. Same school, same office, same group chat, and suddenly those random people are shaping your standards, your habits, your confidence. This isn't about building some elite Andrew Tate approved circle where everyone's a millionaire at 22. It's about designing a 10-year support system instead of accepting default company. If you think about it, your environment is mostly people. Their energy, their expectations, their chaos or calm. You're not just managing your room or your phone. You're managing the human voices in your head when you're alone. In a healthy 10-year system, there are 3 key roles: peers on the same path, mentors a few steps ahead, and learners you can help. Peers are the ones who text, "Jim," instead of, "You coming out again?" Mentors are the people who have already survived the chapter you're in. Learners are the ones you turn around for and say, "Here's what I've figured out so far." All 3 matter if you want real respect for your future, not just approval for your present. Peers give you accountability. On days when your willpower is at 2%, their standards keep you from slipping back into the old you. Mentors give you perspective. They've already made the dumb mistakes you're about to make, and they can save you years if you're willing to listen. Learners force you to clarify your own growth. When you teach someone how to set a boundary or design a morning, you're reminding yourself who you're becoming. The first layer of confidence is keeping promises to yourself. The second layer of confidence is being able to help someone else do the same. So how do you choose people on purpose? Start with values. Do they respect effort, honesty, and growth? Or do they respect drama, shortcuts, and constant distraction? Notice their honesty. Can they tell you calmly when you're slipping? Pay attention to effort level. Are they actually doing the work or just talking like a podcast highlight reel? And most importantly, how do you feel after you leave their space? Lighter, clearer, more in control, or drained, anxious, and weirdly smaller? You can't wait for the perfect tribe to magically appear. You reach out first. You join the class, the server, the group, the boring 7 a.m. meetup where people actually show up. You send the, "Hey, I respect how you live, wanna grab coffee" message. Some may say that sounds awkward. Sure. But so is wasting another decade with people who secretly want you to stay stuck. Here's a simple exercise. Tonight, write down 5 people you want to move closer to over the next year, and 5 you need to gently create distance from. Not block, not dramatic speeches, just less time, slower replies, fewer automatic yeses. Real respect comes from quiet, consistent choices, not explosive friendship breakups. And understand, this takes time. Relationships shift slowly. You'll have seasons of overlap, mixed groups, a bit of guilt. That's normal. You're not firing everyone. You're rebalancing your life toward your 10-year self. But even with better people and better boundaries, there's one more trap. If you can't manage your emotions in real time, when you're triggered, jealous, or scared, you'll still sabotage good connections. So next, we're going to talk about emotional control and why one unregulated moment can undo months of progress if you're not careful. Reacting versus responding, the 3-second gap that changes your life. Emotional control isn't about never getting triggered. It's about what you do in the 5 seconds after the trigger hits. That tiny window is where you either stay aligned with your 10-year self or you hand your life over to your worst impulses. Most people live in reaction mode. Someone texts you something disrespectful, and before you even finish reading it, your thumbs are already writing a paragraph essay with 0 punctuation. That's reacting. It's automatic, emotional, and fast. Responding is different. Responding is conscious, chosen, and aligned. It's you taking back control of the room inside your own head. Think about that for a second. The same event can happen, but 2 different versions of you show up. The reactive you sends the angry text, doom scrolls, emotional eats, or rage quits the gym because one workout felt bad. The responding you pauses, breathes, and says, "What actually serves my future here?" It's not about becoming a robot with no feelings. It's about not letting every feeling drive the car. There's this thing I call the 3-second gap. It's that micro moment right after something hits you, an insult, a craving, a notification, where you feel the surge of energy in your chest or stomach. For about 3 seconds, you have a choice. You can grab the wheel, or you can let your autopilot run the same old script. If you think about it, most of your regrets come from the moments where you didn't catch that gap in time. Texts sent in anger, late night junk food after you swore you'd be healthy, quitting a project because one person didn't give you approval, snapping at someone you actually love. Real respect comes from how you handle those exact moments, not how you act when everything is calm and the lighting is good. So here's a simple technique. Notice, breathe, label, choose. You notice the trigger. My heart just spiked, my jaws tight. You breathe. One slow inhale, one slow exhale, even if you're in the middle of a crowded space. You label the emotion. This is anger. This is jealousy. This is fear. Then you choose the next tiny action that your 10-year self would be proud of. Not the perfect action, just the next one. Let's make it real. In an argument, instead of raising your voice, your 3-second response might be, "Give me a minute," and stepping into silence. On social media, when you see something that triggers you, your response might be locking your phone for 15 minutes instead of writing a whole essay in the comments trying to out Andrew Tate. With cravings, the reaction is, "Screw it, I'll start tomorrow," as you order food you don't even want. The response is, "I'll drink a glass of water and wait 5 minutes." With procrastination, the reaction is, "I'll just check YouTube for a second," and you wake up 3 hours later. The response is, "I'll work for 5 minutes, then re-decide." Tiny but powerful. Here's the identity shift. I'm someone who responds, not reacts. That's a standard. That's self-respect. The first layer of winning isn't perfect behavior, it's just noticing the gap more often. The second layer of winning is using that gap on purpose, because in the next part, we're going to plug your 10-year identity into that gap. You'll learn how to run a quick 10-year check, almost like a mental filter, before you speak, text, eat, or quit. And once you start doing that, your future stops being random and starts becoming intentional. The 10-year pause, a 1-question check before you do anything dumb. So here's the upgrade to that gap. You install a 10-year pause. One simple question that you run before you do anything dumb, emotional, or short-sighted. The question is, what would the 10-year version of me want me to do right now? Not tomorrow, not in a perfect world. Right now, in this actual room, with this actual temptation. When you ask that, you yank yourself out of the emotional tunnel, because in the tunnel, all you see is the text, the cookie, the Netflix tab, the argument. Outside the tunnel, you see your health, your money, your relationships, your reputation. Think about that for a second. 10 years is enough time to completely change your body, your bank account, your friend group, and your confidence. But it all gets decided in these tiny, boring, heated moments. Why does this work so well? If you think about it, you're terrible at predicting the next 10 minutes, but surprisingly good at sensing what future you will regret. Studies on what's called the end of history illusion show people underestimate how much they'll change in 10 years. That means your 10-year self is almost a different person with different priorities, different energy, different standards. Let that person advise you. And notice, this isn't about asking, what would a perfect person do? You're not cosplaying some monk or Andrew Tate on a caffeine high. You're asking, what would my older, slightly wiser, still human self say? The first layer of this is compassion. They know your patterns. They know you're tired, emotional, scrolling. But they also know what happens if you keep choosing the easy thing, mini scenarios. You're about to send a petty text just to win the argument. 10-year you probably says, "Don't pour gasoline on this. Go for a walk. Reply later, shorter, calmer. You're about to skip a workout again. 10-year you doesn't care that it's raining. They care that your knees don't hurt when you're 35. You're about to binge watch instead of working on the project that could change your income. 10-year you is like, one focused hour now buys me years of options. Same with money. You see something dumb on Instagram you want to buy. In the tunnel, it's, I deserve this. Outside the tunnel, it's, would 10-year me rather I invest this or spend it to impress people who don't even notice? Real respect comes from choosing the version of you that has real freedom, not just short hits of approval. Here's where identity kicks in. Every time you choose the 10-year aligned action, you're not just winning that moment, you're voting for that future self. One workout isn't about abs. One calm response isn't about that fight. It's about being the kind of person who acts with control under pressure. The second layer of confidence is stacking those votes until it feels natural. Make this question visible. Put it on your phone lock screen. Write it on a sticky note on your wall. Put it in your journal. You want it in your space, so it interrupts you right when you're about to react. Some may say that sounds cheesy. Cool. Being chronically stressed and broke is also cheesy. And here's the twist we'll get into next. Sometimes the 10-year aligned action isn't grinding harder. Sometimes it's closing the laptop, turning off your phone, and resting on purpose so you can actually play the long game without burning out. Productive rest. Why grinding non-stop is quietly destroying your future. And that's where most people get it completely wrong. You've been sold this idea that if you're not exhausted, you're not serious. If you're not grinding 24/7, some Andrew Tate inspired clone is out there stealing your future. Think about that for a second. If non-stop hustle actually worked over 10 years, why are so many hardworking people secretly burnt out, anxious, and stuck in the same place? Your brain is not a machine, it's closer to a muscle. You can't max out every single day with no recovery and then be shocked when your willpower, focus, and confidence collapse. Sleep deprivation from even one night can mess up your decision making like you're borderline drunk. Over a decade, that doesn't just cost you productivity, it costs you self-respect because you keep watching yourself make tired, reactive choices you know are beneath you. This isn't about being soft or losing your edge. It's about understanding that real long-term control over your life comes from cycles of effort and recovery. Some may say, I'll rest when I'm successful. Cool. By the time you get there, your nervous system is cooked, your relationships are weak, and you don't even enjoy the room you thought to be in. The first layer of fixing this is to separate numbing from rest. Numbing is scrolling for 3 hours, binging shows, stuffing your calendar so you never have to sit in silence with your own thoughts. It feels like relief in the moment, but if you think about it, you stand up from that couch more drained, more foggy, more annoyed at yourself. True rest is different. It's recovery, reflection, and recharging your energy so you can walk back into your life with more presence and more control. So what does that actually look like? A slow walk without your phone where your brain finally gets to wander. A real conversation with someone you trust where you say what you actually feel instead of performing for approval. A hobby where there's no scoreboard and no audience. 8 hours of sleep, not as a luxury, but as a non-negotiable. 10 minutes of solitude in your own space, just breathing and letting your thoughts settle instead of reacting to every notification. Here's the reframe. Rest is a strategic investment in your future capacity. It's not about escaping work, it's about protecting the part of you that does good work. You're not losing time. You're buying better hours tomorrow, next month, and 5 years from now. One practical way to do this is to create guilt-free rest windows. Planned, on purpose. You decide, from 8 to 9 p.m., I'm off. Phone in another room, no work tabs, I'm resting. When you schedule it, you don't have to sneak it or feel like you're stealing from your responsibilities. You're in control. You can grind hard during work blocks because you trust that recovery is already built into the system. Use this simple filter for every rest activity. Does this leave me more alive or more drained? Ask it after the walk, after the Netflix episode, after the night out. If you keep choosing what leaves you more alive, your aura changes. You walk into a space with more calm energy, more patience. A rested brain doesn't just feel better, it manages emotions better. You respond instead of react. You pause instead of exploding. Real respect comes from that kind of quiet control over yourself. And here's the thing. You can't rely on motivation to remember all of this when you're tired and stressed. To make productive rest automatic, you need simple systems that protect it for you, even on your worst days. That's what we're going into next. Simple systems. Stop relying on memory and motivation. So here's the uncomfortable truth. Your future doesn't care how motivated you feel tonight. It cares about what your systems make you do on a random Tuesday when you're tired, annoyed, and doom scrolling in the dark. Motivation is a nice bonus. It's terrible infrastructure. When life gets busy, stressed, emotional, your brain goes into survival mode. You forget the promise you made in the morning. You forget the 10-year direction. You remember one thing. What's easiest right now? Think about that for a second. If what's easiest is TikTok and takeout, your life will follow that path on autopilot. This is why you need systems. A system is just a repeatable process that makes the right action easier and the wrong action harder. That's it. This isn't about building some corporate productivity machine with color-coded dashboards. It's about designing the path of least resistance so even your laziest self accidentally does the thing that future you respects. If you think about it, you already have systems. A phone in bed until 2 a.m. system. A check email before I even sit down to work system. They're just invisible and unintentional. We're going to flip that. We're going to build simple systems on purpose, habit stacks, checklists, calendar blocks, default routines that quietly run your day. Habit stack. After I make coffee, I journal 1 page. Checklist. A tiny nightly shutdown list. Close tabs, write tomorrow's top 3, put the phone in another room. Calendar block. 9 to 11 a.m. is deep work, no meetings, no notifications. Default routine. Every Sunday at 5 p.m. you do a weekly review instead of wondering if you should. Fewer choices, more execution. Your respect for yourself grows because you actually follow through. The first layer of this is choosing one anchor system, not 10. 1. Morning routine, nightly shutdown, or weekly review. That anchor becomes the spine of your day or your week. Some may say, I just need more discipline, but no, you need fewer moments where you're deciding from scratch. Decision fatigue is real. By the end of the day, your willpower is like your phone at 3%. Systems are the charger. And here's where identity comes in. It's not about being the most productive robot in the room. It's about being the kind of person who follows their system even when they don't feel like it. I'm the person who does my nightly shutdown. I'm the person who shows up for my Sunday reset. That identity gives you quiet confidence. Real respect comes from those boring, consistent reps in silence. But don't Andrew Tate your life and build a 47-step Sigma grind set schedule you'll quit in 2 days. Overcomplicated systems die fast. Simple systems survive bad moods, travel, and chaos. Start embarrassingly small, then upgrade. Because in the next section, we're going to build one of the most powerful simple systems you can have. A weekly reset that keeps your 10-year direction clear, your emotions in check, and your life course correcting before it drifts off a cliff. The weekly reset, realigning your life in 30 minutes. So here's where we turn all of this from theory into something you can actually sit down and do every week. Not a vibe, not a mood, an actual 30-minute meeting with yourself that is non-negotiable. Think about that for a second. You'll show up to a random Zoom meeting that could have been an email, but you'll cancel on yourself the second you feel tired. This isn't about discipline cosplay or becoming some cold productivity robot. It's about giving your future self the same respect you give strangers on your calendar. Weekly is the sweet spot. Daily reviews are usually too emotional. You're in the noise of that one bad day. Yearly reviews are too late. The damage is already baked in. A week is long enough to see patterns, short enough to correct course before your life drifts 6 months in the wrong direction. If you think about it, you're always 1 or 2 bad weeks away from sliding back into old habits. So here's the simple structure: review, reflect, realign, recommit. 30 minutes. No phone, no notifications, just you, a notebook, and a bit of silence. Real respect comes from taking that silence seriously. Review first. You look at last week's actions versus your promises and your 10-year priorities. Did you actually do the 3 things you said mattered, or did you just answer emails faster? Research shows around 40% of what you did was habit, not conscious choice. Were those habits moving you toward your decade vision, or just keeping you comfortably busy? Then reflect. What worked? What didn't? Where did your energy collapse? Where did you feel strangely alive? Maybe you noticed scrolling at midnight wrecked your sleep and your confidence the next day. Maybe that one phone-free walk, no headphones, made your brain feel clear for the first time all week. You're training yourself to read the feedback your life is already giving you. Next, realign. This is where control comes back. You don't just hope to be better. You change the room, the space, the systems. You move the phone charger out of the bedroom. You lay out gym clothes. You block 2 hours of deep work and tell people you're unavailable. It's not about forcing your willpower. It's about designing for your worst moods. Finally, recommit. 1 to 3 small promises, not 20. 1 push-up, not a 2-hour workout. 1 honest conversation, not fixing every relationship. Some may say that's too small to matter. They're wrong. Every week you keep tiny promises. You repair self-respect that years of broken resolutions destroyed. And here's the quiet part. Each weekly reset is a confidence deposit. You're proving again and again that someone is actually steering the ship, you. But even when you do this, there's a trap waiting. You look around, see other people ahead, and suddenly your 10-year path feels pointless. In the next section, we're going to dismantle that comparison spiral and the lie that you're already behind. Escaping the comparison trap. Run your own 10-year race. So here's what happens. You sit down, you finally feel in control, you've got this quiet 10-year race in front of you, and then you open your phone. In 30 seconds, comparison walks in, hijacks your emotions, and suddenly your calm plan feels stupid and slow. One guy your age just bought a house. Someone from school is retired off crypto. That girl from Instagram is in Bali again, and without even noticing, you abandon your own path. You change your goals, you rush decisions, you sign up for stuff you don't even want, just to not feel behind. Think about that for a second. Your entire life direction rewritten by a scroll. The first layer of this trap is simple. You're comparing your behind the scenes to their highlight reel. You see their promotion, not their panic attacks. Their relationship photos, not the fights. Their gym selfie, not the 10 years of insecurity before that. If you think about it, you never see the full picture of other people's lives. You see the curated wins, the filtered angles, the moments designed to get approval. But there's a second layer of madness. You're not even playing the same game. different games, different timelines. Career has a different arc than family. Health moves slower than social media. Creativity often looks like nothing is happening for years, until it doesn't. Some may say you're losing at life because you don't have the car yet, but maybe your real game is building a body you trust, or a marriage that actually lasts. This isn't about pretending you don't care about money or status. It's about choosing your scoreboard on purpose. Real respect comes from knowing what winning means for you, not borrowing someone else's metrics. If your only measure of progress is, do I look impressive in a 15-second clip? You will always feel behind, no matter what you achieve. So here's a practical reset. Tonight, no drama, no overthinking. Write what winning in 10 years looks like across a few areas: career, money, health, relationships, creativity, and character. Not the fantasy version, the grounded version. How do you want your energy to feel when you walk into a room? What kind of peace do you want when you sit in silence? Who are the people around you? Now, jealousy, it's gonna hit. That's fine. Next time it does, use a simple reframe. They're proof it's possible, not proof I'm behind. Their win is evidence the game can be played, not a verdict on your worth. That little sentence gives you back control instead of spiraling into self-hate. And remember, comparison is heavily environmental. If your feeds are a 24/7 highlight reel of flexing, drama, and Andrew Tate adjacent rants, of course your self-respect collapses. Curate your inputs. Mute accounts that trigger you. Spend more time with people who talk about habits, not just headlines. Your environment either fuels your 10-year race or constantly drags you into a 10-second sprint. In the next section, we're going to anchor this even deeper by using gratitude and evidence tracking, not as cheesy affirmations, but as hard proof to stay grounded, motivated, and actually excited about your own lane. Evidence tracking. Collecting proof that you're actually changing gratitude is nice, but your brain does not care about nice. It cares about survival, and the survival brain is obsessed with threats, failures, and everything you did wrong today. Think about that for a second. You could keep 5 promises to yourself, set 1 boundary, get a workout in, and then snap once in traffic. And what does your mind replay on loop before you fall asleep? The one moment you lost control. That bias is why you keep feeling like nothing's changing, even when it actually is. If you think about it, your 10-year self is already leaving you tiny clues every day. But because they're small and not dramatic, you scroll past them mentally. So we're gonna hack that. This isn't about cheesy affirmations or pretending you're a millionaire in the mirror. It's about collecting hard proof, evidence, receipts that you are slowly becoming the person you said you would be. I want you to start an evidence log. Literally call it that. An evidence log is where you record the tiny proofs that you're becoming your 10-year self. Kept promises, better reactions, boundaries, workouts, progress on projects, even the nights you actually went to bed on time instead of watching another Andrew Tate debate compilation. Some may say that's overkill for such small things, but that's the point. Real respect comes from the micro moments no one else sees. You didn't binge. You stopped at 1 episode. You replied calmly instead of sending a wall of angry text. You said no to a plan that would have wrecked your morning. One by one, those are bricks in your identity. Keep the format stupid simple. Notes app on your phone titled Evidence. A tiny journal by your bed. A habit tracker where you tick off kept promise to myself. Even a paper calendar where you throw a big X on days you did one thing your 10-year self would be proud of. It's not about aesthetic, it's about consistency. The first layer of this is just writing it down once a day. The second layer of this is reviewing it. During your weekly reset, scroll back through that evidence log. Read the last 7 days. Ask yourself, if a stranger saw this, would they say nothing is changing? Probably not. Your feeling of being stuck often comes from zero data, just vibes. When you review it, you're literally building a case file that you can trust yourself. Confidence stops being this mystical aura and becomes something you can point to. Here are 37 times this month I did what I said I'd do. That changes how you walk into a room. That changes the silence in your own head. You might feel cringe tracking small stuff. Cool. Being too cool to track is how people stay in the same loop for 10 years. What gets measured grows, and what you ignore decays. Because now that you've got tools, habits, and evidence, the next step is bigger. Turning all of this into a clear personal code you actually live by, even under pressure. Your personal code, living by principles instead of moods. So now we take all of that, habits, tracking, environment, and we do something most people never do. You turn it into a personal code, not a mood board, a code, a short list of principles you commit to, especially when you don't feel like it. Think about that for a second. Most people live by vibes. If the energy is good, they're disciplined. If they're tired, stressed, or someone texts them at 11 p.m., the whole new life collapses. Your code is what replaces vibes with standards. It's the thing you go back to when your brain wants the easy way out. A code makes decisions boring. In a good way. You don't start from zero every time. You don't ask, do I feel like going to the gym? You ask, what does my code say? If you think about it, that's how people you secretly respect move. They're not negotiating with themselves every 5 minutes. They already decided what kind of person they are, and they let that run the show. So what actually goes in this code? It has to match everything we've been talking about. Long term over short term. I don't trade a decade of progress for 10 minutes of dopamine. Respond, don't react. When I'm triggered, I buy myself 60 seconds of silence before I speak. Keep small promises. I do the tiny version instead of doing nothing. Choose people carefully. If someone drains my peace, they don't get my time. Rest on purpose. I schedule rest instead of crashing into it. This isn't about writing poetic quotes. This is about behavior. 5 to 10 clear statements that describe how your 10-year self operates on a Tuesday when nobody's watching. I lift my eyes from my phone when people talk to me. I leave rooms better than I found them. I protect my first hour of the day from the internet. Real respect comes from those boring lines you actually live, not the motivational wallpaper on your lock screen. Let's make it practical. Conflict. Your code says, I don't text angry, I call later, calmly. Opportunity. Your code says, if it doesn't align with my top 3 priorities, I say no, even if it looks shiny. Temptation to binge, scroll, spiral. Your code says, when I want to escape, I move my body for 5 minutes first. Setback. I don't disappear, I run the smallest version of the plan. It's like having if-then rules for your life instead of winging it. And this code is living. The first layer of it will be messy. You'll write something, test it for a week, then during your weekly reset you'll notice, okay, that line was unrealistic. Or, this one actually gave me confidence and control. You refine, you tighten the language, you keep what works, you adjust what doesn't. Over time, this stops being a list and starts being an identity. You become the kind of person who doesn't need constant motivation because your principles handle half the decisions before the feelings even show up. Your aura in a room changes because you're not scrambling for approval. You already know your rules, but there's a catch, a big one. A code is easy when life is calm. The real test is what happens when chaos hits. The breakup, the layoff, the family drama, the 3 a.m. anxiety spiral you didn't plan for. That's where we're going next. Designing your default day. Make success. The path of least resistance chaos is where your code either cracks or quietly carries you. And the bridge between those two outcomes is what I call your default day. Your default day is who you are when you're not trying. Not the New Year's resolution, you, the Tuesday you, the half-tired, scrolling, I'll start tomorrow you. Think about that for a second, because that version of you is running the show about 40% of the time, according to research on habits. That's your real life, not the fantasy one in your notes app. Most people accidentally design a default day that keeps them stuck. Phone right by the bed, so the first thing you see is other people's lives. Junk food on the counter, so the easiest snack is the worst option. No plan for the evening, so Netflix and TikTok win by default. It's not about you being weak, it's about your environment being stronger than your willpower. If you think about it, motivation is like a guest. It shows up when it wants, leaves early, doesn't text back. Environment is your roommate. It's there every morning, every night, silently nudging you. Real respect comes from designing that roommate on purpose. So let's build a simple framework. Morning defaults, work defaults, evening defaults. The first layer of this is not to create some billionaire 4 a.m. cold plunge routine. This isn't about pretending you're Andrew Tate on hard mode. It's about making your best choice slightly easier than your worst one. Morning defaults. What happens from the second your alarm goes off to the moment you start real life? One tweak. Move your phone to the opposite side of the room and put a glass of water on your nightstand. Another tweak. Place a book on your pillow after you make your bed, so to sleep. You have to physically touch something that reminds you of a calmer, more focused identity. Work defaults. You don't need a perfect system, you need fewer traps. One tweak. When you sit down, your desk already has one open notebook with today's top task written. Another, headphones on, one playlist, one tab. The second layer of this is pre-deciding. If it's 9 a.m. on a weekday, I'm doing 25 minutes of deep work before I open email. No debate, no drama. Evening defaults. This is where most people lose the day. You come home, drop your bag, and your body runs the same script. So change the script physically. Set your workout clothes out where you'd normally dump your bag. Put the game controller in a drawer and the foam roller on the couch. Pre-decide. After work, I walk for 10 minutes. Then I can do whatever. Over time, environment beats motivation. If you rely on willpower, you've already lost the long game because your tired, stressed, overwhelmed self will always choose the path of least resistance. So make success that path. Here's the identity shift. You're not trying to become a different person overnight. You're building a different default. Script a realistic default day. One you could run on a bad Tuesday, and then adjust your physical space to match that script. Mini challenge. Today, change 3 tiny environmental cues. One in your morning, one at work, one in the evening that makes your best choice easier than your worst one. In the next section, we'll take this even deeper and talk about what happens when your emotions try to hijack that script. Friction and fuel. How to make bad habits, hard and good habits easy. Your emotions are loud, but your environment is sneaky. And one of the sneakiest forces in your life is friction. Friction is anything that makes a behavior slightly more annoying, slower, or less convenient. Not dramatic, not impossible. Just irritating enough that you think, not worth it, and move on. If you think about it, most of your destructive habits don't survive because you're evil or weak. They survive because they're easy. 2 taps and you're on TikTok. 1 click and Netflix is auto-playing the next episode before your brain even has a chance to vote. This isn't about becoming some willpower monster. It's about making the bad stuff just annoying enough that you skip it more often. You don't need to be stronger. You need your bad habits to be weaker. Think about that for a second. Imagine if every time you wanted junk food, you had to climb on a chair, reach to the very back of the highest cabinet, and unwrap 3 layers of packaging. Same chips, different friction. You'd still eat them sometimes, but not on autopilot when you're half asleep and scrolling. So let's get practical. You can uninstall your social apps every night and only reinstall them during a specific time block the next day. You can log out of your streaming services, so watch next episode now includes typing your email and password like it's 2009. You can move junk food out of sight into the hardest to reach spot in your kitchen and put fruit or water where your hand normally goes. The first layer of control isn't discipline, it's distance. Now flip it. For good habits, you remove friction. You make them stupidly easy to start. Gym bag pre-packed and by the door. Shoes right there. Water bottle always filled and visible on your desk. Notes app pinned to your home screen, so when an idea hits, there's zero delay. Real respect comes from how you design for your future self, not just how hyped you feel in the moment. There's a simple idea I love, the 30-second rule. If you add 30 seconds of friction to a bad habit or remove 30 seconds from a good habit, your behavior changes. 30 seconds to find the remote. You might not bother. 30 seconds less between you and a walk outside. Suddenly it happens. Some may say, but I can just override the friction if I really want it. Exactly. That's the point. You still have freedom. You still have control. You're just making your default path a little smarter. When you're tired, stressed, or anxious, you won't have to argue with yourself as much because the environment quietly votes for the choice you actually respect. This might sound small, but it's a bold promise. Stack enough tiny bits of friction and fuel and your identity shifts. Before this day ends, write down your top 3 bad habits. Add 1 layer of friction to each. Hide, delete, move, or delay something. In the next section, we'll talk about what to do when even that isn't enough and your emotions try to bulldoze every system you build. The 10-year test. Decisions that still make sense a decade from now. So now you've added friction to the dumb stuff and fuel to the good stuff. That's powerful. But there's another level of control most people never touch. How you make decisions in the first place. Most people are running their life on the 10-minute test. Will this feel good 10 minutes from now? Will this text feel good to send? Will this snack feel good to eat? Will this Netflix episode feel good to start at 1 a.m.? If you think about it, that test almost always says yes, right before it wrecks your sleep, your respect for yourself, and your next morning. The upgrade is simple, but it's ruthless. The 10-year test. Will I be glad I made this decision 10 years from now? Not 10 minutes, not tomorrow morning, a decade. Think about that for a second. You, 10 years older, more tired of nonsense, less impressed by fake confidence and Andrew Tate-style posturing, watching you in this exact moment. What are they begging you to stop doing? Take the angry text. The 10-minute test says, send it. You'll feel powerful. You'll win. The 10-year test asks, do you want to be the person who reacts like this? Does this protect the relationship or burn it? Real respect comes from being able to sit in silence for 20 minutes, calm down, and respond like someone who's in control of their energy, not owned by it. Same with skipping the workout. The 10-minute test. You're tired. You deserve a break. The 10-year test. Do you want 10 more years of joint pain, low energy, and hating how you feel in a room? Or 10 years of being able to play with your kids, travel, move with confidence? This isn't about punishment or grind culture. Sometimes the 10-year answer is actually rest, sleep, stretch, protect your body so it still works a decade from now. Look at your relationship. The 10-minute test says stay. At least you're not alone. The 10-year test quietly asks, can you picture 10 more years of this exact dynamic? The same fights, the same disrespect, the same walking on eggshells? Some may say that sounds dramatic, but staying by default is also a decision. So is quitting a project the moment it gets hard. The first layer of resistance hits, and the 10-minute test screams, run. The second layer of thinking asks, Will I respect myself more in 10 years for pushing through this phase or for bailing again? To make this practical, run big choices through 4 lenses over a decade: health, relationships, skills, and character. Does this move help or hurt your health 10 years from now? Does it deepen or drain your relationships? Does it build skills that compound or keep you stuck? Does it shape you into someone with more integrity and self-respect or less? And here's the part that kills the fear of commitment. You're not signing a 10-year contract. You're just asking, does this move me in the right direction if I kept going? You can always adjust your path, but if every choice passes the 10-year test even loosely, your life starts to line up. So be honest. What's one decision you're avoiding right now because you're thinking in days instead of decades? Thinking in seasons, not sprints. Why you don't have to do everything at once, that decision you're avoiding. Part of the reason it feels so heavy is because you're secretly trying to fix your entire life in one move. Career, body, relationships, money, mental health, all upgraded by Tuesday. No wonder you're exhausted before you start. You're not meant to live everything, everywhere, all at once. You're meant to live in seasons. A season is when one area gets the spotlight and the others stay in the room, but they're in the background. You don't abandon them. You just stop pretending you can run 5 marathons at the same time and still have confidence and energy left. Think about that for a second. When you try to be in a gym transformation arc, a startup founder arc, a monk-like healing arc, and the perfect friend arc, all in the same month, what actually happens? You burn out, you drop everything, and then you feel guilty and call yourself lazy. This isn't about you being weak. If you think about it, it's about you running a bad strategy. Instead, you pick a season. Skill building season. For the next 6 months, my main thing is getting good at design. Health reset season. For 3 months, I sleep, walk, lift, and clean up my food. Relationship repair season. This year, I show up for my partner and my close friends. Financial stabilization season. I get out of chaos, build a buffer, and stop bleeding money. Same person, different focus, different aura. And here's the rule. A season is 3 to 12 months, not 3 days, not a weekend challenge you saw in a hypey TikTok. Long enough that it matters, short enough that it doesn't feel like a life sentence. You can do almost anything for 3 months. You can radically shift your trajectory in 12. This is how thinking in decades becomes real. A decade is just a stack of powerful seasons. 3 health seasons, 2 deep skill seasons, 1 hardcore financial season, a couple of relationship seasons. Suddenly your 30s or 40s look lucky from the outside. Real respect comes from quietly choosing your season and staying with it when nobody's clapping. So here's a quick exercise. Name your current season in 1 sentence. This is my blank season. Then define 1 to 3 priorities that actually matter for it. Not 10, not 30, 3. For a health reset season, it might be 7 hours of sleep, a daily walk, and no phone in bed. That's it. You're allowed to let the rest be maintenance mode, and yes, that means guilt will show up. Some may say you're neglecting other areas, but you're not. You're keeping them stable while you push 1 lever on purpose. The first layer of self-respect is accepting that you can't be maxed out everywhere. The second layer of confidence is knowing you're doing the right things for this season, not chasing approval with fake balance. It's not about doing more. It's about doing the right things in the right season with control. In the next part, we'll take this further and build the actual systems and environments that make your chosen season almost automatic, even on your worst days. Strategic quitting. How to drop the wrong things without feeling like a failure. And part of doing the right things is dropping the wrong ones. Strategic quitting is one of the most underrated skills for long-term confidence and self-respect. Most people don't stay stuck because they're lazy. They stay stuck because they refuse to let go of paths that clearly aren't it anymore. You need to separate two very different things: impulsive quitting and strategic quitting. Impulsive quitting is emotional. You have one bad day at the gym, your video flops, your boss snaps at you, and you're like, yeah, I'm done. That's your nervous system trying to escape discomfort. Strategic quitting is calm. It happens after reflection, not a meltdown. You step back, you zoom out 10 years, and you ask, does this still make sense? Think about that for a second. Opportunity cost is brutal over a decade. Every yes you give is a no to something else. Say yes to every social event now. You say no to depth, to sleep, to building skills that future you desperately needs. Say yes to a side project you've outgrown. You say no to the one that could actually change your life. If you think about it, your calendar is already your 10-year prediction. It's not about adding more. It's about deleting what doesn't belong. So here's a simple filter. Ask, is this aligned with my 10-year direction, my current season, and my values? The first layer of clarity is your direction. Does this move you even 1 inch toward the kind of person you want to be in 10 years? The second layer of clarity is your season. Does this fit your current energy, responsibilities, and limits? Finally, values. Does this feel like self-respect or self-betrayal? If the answer is no, no, and no, why are you still doing it? Look at your life. The weekly drinks that leave you drained and secretly resentful. The group chat you mute but never leave because you're scared people will talk. The side hustle you started 3 years ago that made sense then, but now just eats your weekends and your aura. Even habits that used to serve you, like saying yes to every opportunity early in your career, can become a trap later. This isn't about becoming a cold robot with no friends. It's about taking back control of your time and energy. Here's where identity kicks you in the face. You tell yourself, but I'm the reliable one, or I'm the guy who never quits, or I'm the social one who's always down. Some may say quitting means you failed. No, you're not a failure for quitting, you're evolving. Real respect comes from being willing to update your identity when the old version is costing you your future. Practically, you need a clean exit script so you don't panic in the moment. Something like, hey, I've realized I need to focus my energy on a few priorities this season, so I won't be able to keep doing X. I appreciate you thinking of me, but I have to say no. Clear, kind, firm, no over-explaining, no apology tour. Say it, then let the silence sit. People might push back once, then they adjust. To lock this in, make a quit list. Literally write down 3 to 5 things you will intentionally do less of or stop this month. A recurring plan you'll step out of. A project you'll close. A habit you'll retire. You're not just freeing time, you're freeing mental space and emotional bandwidth. Your future systems will sit on that space. So here's the move. Once a week, you step out of the chaos and actually look at your life from above. Not for 3 hours with 10 different highlighters. 10, maybe 15 minutes. But done every week, that tiny ritual quietly rewires your path. Weekly is the sweet spot. Daily reviews are like zooming in so far you only see pixels. Yearly reviews? That's when people wake up on December 31st like, wait, how did this year disappear? Weekly lets you zoom out just enough to see patterns without losing touch with reality. Think about that for a second. 52 chances a year to course correct instead of one big, dramatic, New Year, New Me speech you abandon by February. The first layer of this is stupid simple. 3 questions. What worked? What didn't? What will I change next week? That's it. No novel, no essay. You're not writing a therapy memoir. You're just pulling data from your own life. Worked might be phone in another room after 10 p.m. You slept better. Your morning energy went up. Didn't work might be saying yes to every invite, then feeling drained and resentful. Then you zoom in on your systems. Look at your 111 from earlier. The one habit, the one project, the one relationship you said mattered. Did you actually move them forward, even slightly? You review your 3 non-negotiables: sleep, movement, and maybe 1 hour of focused work before you touch your phone. Did you protect those, or did you trade them for scrolling and random drama? If you think about it, this is where real respect comes from, keeping the small promises you make to yourself. Now, tone matters. This isn't about beating yourself up or playing judge and jury. You're not a failure on trial. You're a scientist running experiments. The goal is data, not drama. When I stay up past midnight, my next day is trash. Cool. That's a finding, not a moral verdict. Some may say they have no discipline, but often it's just bad experiments and zero review. From there, you make one tiny upgrade, not 10. 1. Add friction to a bad habit. Uninstall the app that eats your focus, or put junk food in a hard-to-reach place. Remove friction from a good one. Gym clothes on the chair, journal on your pillow, friend's name already written in your calendar to text. Or you tweak your environment and circle. More time with the person who calms your energy, less with the one who lives in constant chaos. To lock this in, you anchor it. Same time, same place, same cue. Sunday evening, same chair, same notebook. No TV on, phone in another room, a bit of silence so your brain can actually hear itself. Over time, that space becomes a signal. This is where you take back control. And here's the decade play. Studies show people massively underestimate how much they'll change in 10 years. If you course correct every week for the next decade, it's almost impossible to end up in the same place. Tiny upgrades, 52 times a year for 10 years straight. Your aura, your confidence, your whole life path shifts. But there's one more piece. Systems and rituals are powerful, but they're still just tools. If you don't make a clear, personal commitment about who you're becoming, all of this stays vague. In the next part, we're going to turn this from nice ideas into a specific promise you make to yourself and actually keep. Your personal contract, one decision that makes 1,000. So here's where everything shifts. Up to now, it's been ideas, examples, systems, useful. But your life doesn't change from interesting concepts. It changes when you make one clear decision that quietly rewires 1,000 tiny ones. Think about that for a second. Most of your day is autopilot. Research suggests around 40% of what you do is just habit, not some deep conscious choice. So if you don't pre-decide who you are and what you do, the algorithm, your past, and other people's approval will happily decide for you. This is where your personal contract comes in. Not a legal document, no lawyers, no Andrew Tate style, sign your soul away for grindset glory. It's a one-page agreement between you and you. A simple sheet that says, this is the kind of person I am now. This is what I do, even on bad days. The first layer of this contract is your 3 non-negotiables. These are the pillars that don't move when you're tired, stressed, or tempted. For example, I move my body every day. I protect 7 hours of sleep. I never trash talk myself out loud. When you pre-decide these, you remove 1,000 weak negotiations with yourself in the moment. Then you add your daily 1-1-1 rule in writing. Every day, I do one thing for my body, one thing for my mind, one thing for my future. One walk, one page of reading, one small action toward a decade-level goal. If you think about it, that alone, repeated for years, quietly changes your aura, your confidence, your whole trajectory. Next, boundaries. I am someone who leaves work at work after 7 p.m. I don't respond instantly to every message. I don't stay in rooms where I'm disrespected. Real respect comes from the way you enforce these lines, not from loud speeches about self-respect. You also plan for low motivation days. This isn't about pretending you'll always be on fire. You literally write, "When I feel lazy or numb, I still do the minimum version." One push-up, one paragraph, one honest text instead of ghosting. That way, you stay in motion without needing superhero energy. Use identity language all the way through. I am someone who, I'll try. Some may say that's just semantics, but your brain believes what you repeat. You're installing a new default. Add 2 or 3 never rules. I never go 2 days without movement. I never lie to protect my image. I never sacrifice sleep for mindless scrolling. Short, sharp lines that act like guardrails when emotion takes over. Print this. Put it where you actually see it. On your wall, your desk, your phone background. Revisit it in your weekly reset. Update it as you grow. Cross things out without guilt. It's not about perfection. It's a living document that evolves as you become a different person. Now you've made a private commitment. In the next part, we're going to raise the stakes just a bit and use one small strategic public move to massively increase the odds you actually follow through. Make it real. One public micro commitment. You'll actually keep now. We're going to do something that will make a tiny part of you uncomfortable. And that's exactly why it works. You've made a private plan. That's cute. But your brain treats private promises like optional suggestions. The moment you say even one small thing out loud to another human, the energy changes. You feel this subtle pressure to line up your actions with your words, especially if that person has your respect. Think about that for a second. You'd rather suffer than look inconsistent in front of someone you admire. Psychology has a boring name for this, but you already know the feeling. You tell a friend, "I'm quitting sugar," and suddenly that late night ice cream hits different. This isn't about shame. It's about using a basic human tendency on purpose. When you say it publicly, you want your behavior to match because your self-respect and your aura of control are on the line. But listen carefully. This does not mean you go on Instagram and announce your 10-year life plan with dramatic music and Andrew Tate background edits. Some may say that's motivational. Usually it's just a performance. What we want is one small, boring, specific habit tied to the identity you just wrote down. I'm the kind of person who takes care of my body becomes, I'm walking 20 minutes every morning this month. That's it. Simple, clear, measurable. Or I'm becoming someone who lives with intention turns into I'm doing a weekly reset every Sunday for the next 4 weeks. Not forever. 4 weeks. If you think about it, your brain handles short, concrete promises way better than vague, endless ones. Short promise, clear finish line, easy win. Who do you tell? Not the most cynical person in your contacts who thinks any self-improvement is cringe. Choose someone whose energy you actually respect. Ideally someone who also cares about growth, who thinks in years, not just in weekend plans. It could be a friend, a sibling, a partner, or even a small online community that isn't built around constant drama. Then set up one tiny check-in, not a whole accountability circus. A weekly text where you send done or not done. A shared note you both see. A calendar reminder where you reply with a single emoji. The first layer of this is visibility. Someone else knows. The second layer of this is consistency. The rhythm of reporting keeps the habit in the front of your mind. And don't overpromise. This is where people destroy their confidence. They announce, I'm going to the gym 6 days a week at 5 a.m. when they currently wake up at 10 scrolling TikTok. Start with something so small it's almost impossible to fail. One 20-minute walk, one weekly reset, one page of reading. Success builds quiet confidence. Failure, repeated, quietly erodes it. Real respect comes from being the person who does what they say, especially when other people have heard you say it. Every tiny kept promise is like a vote for this new identity you're building. You're training your nervous system to believe, when I speak, I follow through. That's a different kind of power than just hyping yourself up. So now you've got private clarity and one public micro commitment. In the next section, we're going to zoom out. We'll ask a bigger question. If you actually keep living this way, tiny promises kept week after week, who do you become over the next decade? Because that's where this really gets interesting. Meet your future self. The decade from now thought experiment. So let's zoom out, not to next week, not to summer, 10 years. Imagine this. You open your eyes one morning a decade from now, and you're waking up inside the life that these tiny promises created. Don't overcomplicate it. Just picture it like a movie scene. Your alarm goes off. You reach for your phone, but it's not next to your pillow anymore. It lives across the room because years ago you got tired of starting your day with everyone else's problems. You stand up. Your body feels solid. Not perfect, not Instagram shredded, but grounded. Less random pain, more quiet strength. You walk into your kitchen. It's not some millionaire kitchen, relax. But it's calm, there's light. There's actual food on the counter because future you became the kind of person who preps instead of hoping DoorDash fixes their life. Your morning has a shape now. Maybe it's 5 minutes of silence with coffee. Maybe it's a walk without headphones. Maybe it's journaling one honest page before the chaos starts. If you think about it, that whole scene is just boring decisions, repeated. Phone in another room, groceries instead of junk, bedtime that doesn't insult your nervous system. None of that looks dramatic on TikTok, but your nervous system can feel the difference. Fast forward a bit, work. You're not necessarily in your dream job on a yacht with Andrew Tate screaming about Bugattis in the background, but you're doing work that at least lines up with your values. You can say no without your voice shaking. You don't accept every meeting, every favor, every drama invite. Real respect comes from how you protect your time, not how busy you look. Think about that for a second. The people around you now, they're calmer, kinder. You filtered differently. You stopped chasing approval from anyone with a pulse and you started choosing people who respect your boundaries. Your aura when you walk into a room is quieter but stronger. You don't need to dominate the space. You're in control of yourself and people can feel that. Now, alternate timeline, same bed 10 years later, but your body feels heavy, sleep debt, 10 years of scrolling past midnight. Your first thought is panic because your notifications hit you before your own thoughts do. Your mornings are chaos. No margin, no silence, just reacting. Work feels like a trap. You say yes to everything because you're scared of conflict. Your environment is cluttered. Your phone owns your attention and your self-talk is brutal. You're lazy. You're behind. You always mess this up. This isn't about shame, it's just what 10 years of autopilot looks like. Both futures are built the same way. One small, boring daily choice at a time. Not one motivational speech, not one perfect Monday. The first layer of transformation is microscopic, so meet that future you like a real person. Close your eyes later and ask them, what are they thanking you for? Better sleep. One honest conversation you finally had? Which habit did you stop that literally changed their life? What would they beg you to quit right now? Here's your move. Write a short note from Future Me 2034 to you today. 2 paragraphs, no perfection. Let them speak with respect and honesty. What identity are they asking you to step into? What boundaries are they reminding you to hold when it's uncomfortable? It's not about becoming a flawless robot. It's about being slightly more loyal to your future self than to your current comfort. In the next section, we'll turn this vision into a clear, simple action plan, so you're not just inspired for 10 minutes and then back on autopilot. The one choice you make when this video ends. So now we're here. You've just spent all this time thinking differently about your life. but none of it matters if you walk away and do nothing. Think about that for a second. Your future doesn't change when you hear advice. It changes when you act on it while it's still uncomfortable. Let's zoom out. You learn to think in decades, not days. To stop obsessing over this week's mood and start asking, who am I becoming over the next 10 years? You saw how designing your environment beats relying on willpower. Phone in another room, junk food out of the house, journal on your pillow. Real respect comes from setting things up so even your worst days still move you forward a little. We talked about keeping small promises to yourself. One push-up, one page, one honest message instead of ghosting. If you think about it, that's where your confidence actually comes from. Not from some Andrew Tate speech, not from a random motivation spike, but from you proving quietly, when I say I'll do something, I do it. You learn to manage emotions instead of letting them manage you. Pause before reacting. Breathe before sending the angry text. Give yourself 10 minutes of silence before you numb out with another 3-hour scroll. The first layer of control isn't some perfect morning routine. It's catching yourself in the moment and choosing a slightly better response. Then there's your people. Who you let into your space, your room, your DMs. You saw how choosing your circle and saying no without guilt shapes your aura more than any fancy outfit. Some may say that sounds harsh, but your future self does not care if you were polite while you slowly destroyed your own boundaries. So now it all collapses into one choice. When this video ends, do you slide back into autopilot or do you take one concrete action in the next 10 minutes? This isn't about changing your whole life tonight. It's about refusing to be most people who feel inspired, nod along, and then open TikTok and forget everything. Here's the move. First, write your 3 non-negotiables for the next year, not 20. 3. Second, define your daily 1-1-1 for tomorrow. One thing for your body, one thing for your mind, one thing for your future. Third, schedule your first weekly reset in your calendar, even if it's just 15 minutes on Sunday to review and adjust. To lock it in, share your one micro commitment in the comments or send it to a friend and say, hold me to this. Give your future self some backup. The second layer of identity change is being seen doing the work, not just thinking about it. Your future self is watching what you do next, not what you just watched. So when this video stops playing, remember, it's not about changing your whole life tonight. It's about who you decide to be in the silence right after this ends.